Well, good Saturday morning, everyone. My name is Paul Whitcup, and it's my privilege to talk with you just a little bit this morning about the devotional reading that we have from Nehemiah chapter 2. Yesterday, we read Nehemiah chapter 1, and we learned that Nehemiah was a Jewish person who was in the high court of King Artaxerxes of Persia. He was a food tester. That was a very trusted position. And Nehemiah received some bad news from his brothers and sisters, his fellow Jewish brothers and sisters who were in Jerusalem, and they had been returned to Jerusalem a few years before to return it to its former glory. And they had rebuilt the temple, but the news that he received was that Jerusalem was defenseless because they did not have walls. The walls were in shambles around them. And so Nehemiah, his first reaction when he received this information was that it says he prayed and he wept and he mourned and he fasted. And at the beginning of this chapter 2, we learn that he actually prayed for 5 months. 5 months, and he struggled with God for this time to figure out what was going to be his response to God's information, the information that God had given him through this communication. So he eventually realized that God was calling him to leave his position temporarily from the king and to lead a team of people to rebuild the walls. And so he was looking for a chance to talk with the king. And so we pick up in verse 1. It says, "I was serving the king his wine, and I had never before appeared sad in his presence. So the king asked me, 'Why are you looking so sad? You don't look sick to me. You must be deeply troubled.' Then I was terrified." He was terrified about this conversation that he needed to have. He says, "But I replied, 'Long live the king. How can I not be sad? For the city where my ancestors are buried is in ruins, and the gates have been destroyed by fire.' And then the king asked, 'Well, how can I help you?' Here was his spot. Here was his time to ask. And so what does he do? He prays. It says, 'With a prayer to the God of heaven, I replied, if it please the king and you are pleased with me, your servant, send me to Judah to rebuild the city where my ancestors are buried.' And much to Nehemiah's surprise, the king said yes to his request. And not only did he say yes, but he said, 'I want to help fund it. I want to give you letters of safe travel so that you can make it through the neighboring countries.' And then later we find out in chapter 2 that Nehemiah is scouting out the area where firsthand where the walls need to be built, and it was a time of dedication as a kind of a prayer walk where he was going to figure out how he was going to talk to the city officials about the project. And it just reminded me that Nehemiah was a prayer. And in 1 Thessalonians 5:17, the Apostle Paul says, pray about everything. In all situations, pray. Never stop praying. And I think that's how Nehemiah lived. And I think that's how God wants us to live. And the big decisions that even the ones that take a long time over time to persevere in prayer, and the crucial conversations, sometimes we have those one-word prayers before we go in and talk to somebody, or our plans about the next steps, or even about little things. And so today is in all days, and when you're on your journey, when you're out and about, when you're back at home, pray about everything because prayer is powerful. So have a great day, and remember, pray.